sure the exact date when Woodman Row was built, but you can see on a map of 1829 here, it must have been built sometime after. Academy for village children was a church school held at two cottages on Woodman Row on Leeds Road. These premises, however, established around the time of the church came to Bradley, were soon considered inconveniently crowded, and many children could not be admitted as scholars. About the year 1863, it was determined to make an effort to raise funds to provide more adequate accommodation. This was achieved chiefly through exertions of the wife of Mr. Thomas A, supported by Reverend Abraham Smith, Vicar of Bradley, and the principal of the Collegiate at Huddersfield, one of the few educational establishments generally available to scholars from Bradley. The cost of the school was estimated at £800, and over £650 had been quickly raised when the foundation stone was laid. On Saturday, May 21st, 1870, the new school was formally opened with a tea party and a concert. The school building measured 72 feet long by 36 feet wide and was intended to provide accommodation for 200 scholars. In 1871, the number of pupils on the school register at Bradley totaled 138. However, the average attendance was only 68, and this school was built to provide 200 places. By 1873, the actual attendance had reached 92, while the number on the register was 204. The school by this day was in receipt of an annual government grant, and in 1872 the sum recorded was £70, 9 shillings and sixpence. In 1876 the Bradley Day School had 138 mixed elementary pupils and 79 infants on the school register, with an average attendance of 123 scholars and 60 infants. It was also recorded there were seven half-timers, children working and attending school for only half a day or less, a common arrangement in this period of history, and 2 children allowed by the school board to attend lessons full-time but not half-timers. The school building was enlarged in 1885 by the addition of a large infants' room facing onto Bradley Road, which carried the dates of the school erection and enlargement on the gable end in raised stone letters. At the time, the school superintendents were recorded as Messrs. Pearson and Alstead. The number of scholars was given as 242 males and 140 females. There were 30 teachers, 13 males and 17 females, and the number of books in the library totalled 540. The first substantial increase in housing was considered by the Huddersfield housing authorities as early as 1913. At that date, land known as Bradley Quarry Field near Bradley Church School was to be used for 50 houses to be constructed on the site in artificial stone. In January 1914, consent was received from the local government board for the scheme of housing to go ahead. A strike by the members of the Amalgamated Society of Carpenters and Joiners in 1915 delayed completion, but by the end of January 1916 the houses were finished, and the borough engineer asked the housing committee about the naming of the new street abutting up onto the houses. In response, it was decided that the road should be called Curzon Street. At the same time, tenders were invited for the erection of the second phase of housing on a site down Bradley Road. It was then called Olde Road, below Oak Road, at the same side, and the borough engineers submitted a block plan showing how the remaining land in the vicinity, owned by the Oak Committee, could be laid out for the construction of 21 additional dwelling houses. The houses on Bradley Road must have been constructed after the houses on Curzon Street, as Curzon Street is clearly visible on a map of 1917, but these are not. By far, the largest number of houses, however, was built after 1952. From this period, Woodman Avenue and Elder Road completed by 1953, and the streets and cul-de-sacs northwards to the top of Ellendale Road were constructed. The Sherwood Avenue School was built, the multi-storey flats and shops in Copthorne Square, the Little John Public House opened in 1957 and built by W.J. Wimperney and Co. The nearby Artley Manor Old People's Residential Home, recently closed and removed, and in Copthorne Gardens in 1956, the Bradley Children's Home was put up at a cost of just over £4,000 by John Lang and Sons, who were the major contractors for the new council estate. The building that devastated me personally so much was when Park Hill was extended, which was started and installed in 1968 along with Bradley Grange Gardens. Here, Barrett Developments Bradford Limited eventually erected 204 houses and flats between 1979 and 1984. These were the fields where I was playing as a child. In modern times, changes have occurred in practically every corner of Bradley. In 1984, Kirklees Metropolitan District Council, the successors to the Huddersfield Borough Council, who were created in 1972 following government reorganisation, published their proposals for the Huddersfield area for the following 10 years. In this, not only was Bradley expected to see the largest industrial development in the district, particularly along the Leeds Road corridor, but it was also expected to bear the biggest expansion in housing too. 4 sites were proposed by the planning authorities for residential development. The largest, for 300 houses, was to be the site of the former Bradley Woods Sanatorium Hospital, which I'll mention more about in a later chapter. Some of the ancient woodland was to be retained, but here extensive development would see construction of new roads sufficiently large enough to take a bus route, and the building of private middle-class residences, as well as possibly a number of small, clean, high-tech industrial units. A new road off Bradley Road adjacent to the petrol station was envisaged. Between this and the golf course, a further 200 houses were planned, and between the road and the existing Park Hill estate, another 127 houses would be erected as an extension to this development. The smallest site to be built was one of the Lodge Farm developments. Beside the new St Thomas's Church, 40 new houses were planned with access via the former drive of Bradley Lodge, presently leading to the church, which would be widened to take extra vehicles. It was proposed, however, in order to minimise traffic along this road, to allocate as much of this accommodation to elderly residents. The final bit of green space in Bradley, which we all know is in grave danger of redevelopment, is Bradley Park Golf Course, which was the first municipal golf course in Kirklees. The 18-hole course was officially opened on Sunday 31st of July 1977 by the Mayor Councillor Jack Brooke. Cost of the course was £120,000 and is set between Bradley Road and the M62 motorway. It was first approached as early as 1973. At that time of its conception, it was said that the land could present quite some interesting features, with the highest point at the 8th tee, situate more or less on the old Bradley Plains, which sportsmen might remember for the motorcycle scrambles which used to be held there. At that date, there was still some negotiation to be completed regarding the tenant farmers at Landcourt, which could be in the middle of the course, and Shepherd's Thorn on its edge, and the timing of the opening very much depended upon these. There was also some tipping still proceeding at the Bradley end of the proposed site that would have to be covered in soil and seeded. The entrance to the course is on the road which leads to Lance Court off Bradley Road. Bradley today has a population of around 7,000 residents, and the words written in 1943 by the then vicar at that period, when the village population was less than 1,000, are probably as applicable now as they were then. Bradley is still in a transition phase and grows ever larger. With this expansion, new unforeseen problems have inevitably occurred during the change from an isolated rural village to the largest sprawling suburb of Huddersfield. Unlike the days of yesteryear, for instance, when people and Bradley are very much in touch with each other as they were, at one time practically everybody knew everyone in the village. Nowadays the inhabitants are lucky if they know anyone in their immediate street, but I believe the same pride in the area exists as it always did all them years back. The village still retains an identity of its own, despite being swallowed up by the town, and hopefully in the pages of history of Bradley, I trust that has been revealed to give newer residents of this village a sense of why Bradley still holds a sense of place.